Hello? 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 Oh, it worked again. Okay. Sorry, trying to be silly. So I had this whole speech planned. I've actually given this one before, but today I feel like squirreling it a little bit. Yeah, so off the cuff. Um, so I am the bus driver. If you've seen the bus outside, it's big and huge. Can't miss it. It says worth it on it. Um, share a little bit of my story. I grew up a relatively normal childhood. I was the youngest of three siblings. I have two older brothers. And of course, that made me a lot stronger because they were older than me. They always used to, hide things from me, lock me in my room, all of that kind of stuff. So, helped a little bit growing up. My father worked for CSX Railroad, so we traveled around a lot when I was younger, but we always ended up back in Florida. So the last time that we came back to Florida, it got a little tough because my dad went to a master's degree program, so he was working full time and going to the master's degree program. And then my mom started working as well. There was a little bit of tension that started there because they're both from South Carolina, so they had that traditional marriage thinking where the father should provide and the mom stays home and takes care of the kids. But at that time, it was quite necessary that my mom did go to work because of financial reasons and such. And I mean, the woman, she can do what she wants, right? So she started working, and so he was going to school full time, working full time, and me and my brothers just had free reign to basically do whatever we wanted to do. My middle brother took over advantage of that situation because he would do everything in his power to be a rebel, and he succeeded tremendously at it. So while that friction was heating up, the tension started between my parents, and suddenly, I was 15 years old at the time. My father passed away of an aneurysm. So there was no real closure there at all because it was sudden. And then the relationship between my parents was a little bit strained. So there was a lot going on. And being 15, I didn't really know how to process that at all. There was no direction for me. I completely lost hope. I started spiraling, got into drugs, got into alcohol. I didn't care about myself, much like John said earlier. Just who cares? I don't care about anything. I just don't want to be here anymore. Went to a family reunion in South Carolina, and I totaled my mom's car. I was 18 years old. Drank, blew a .8. Totaled my mom's car. When the cop got there, the engine was basically sitting on my legs. He had to pull me out of the window, and my uncle is actually a U.S. Marshal, so that went over very well. So that was, just part of the downward spiral. I mean, there's so many more things that I could mention, but that was just, one of them. So while that was taking place, and I just didn't care about life. I wanted it over. I didn't want anything to do with it. When you get in that headspace, you're just so far gone that hope is AWOL, and there's no way to really come back from that. So my middle brother, and I were living together. My oldest brother was off at the Marines at the time. So my middle brother and I were living together, and I just lost all hope. I didn't want to see tomorrow. I didn't think there was a tomorrow. So I went into my closet, broke open a razor, and sliced my wrist. He was trained as an EMT at the time, so he knew all the right questions to ask me to get me the help that I needed. So I was put into an institution, started finally realizing like this is not good. The way that I'm acting and the way that I'm treating people and the way that I'm treating myself is not good. So I tried to turn myself around, kind of got back on track, went to college, started going to school, working full time. So it got a little better. I kind of got back on track a little bit. So he had saved me, basically. So fast forward a little bit, I leaned on him because I knew that he was always going to be there for me. We became really close best friends. Everything was good. We were happy. He's hilarious. So we would go out. We had the same group of friends. Everything was looking good until October of 2014 when he took his own life. So the one that saved me ended up dying by suicide. So I know that the theme of today, everyone is sharing their stories, and we all have one. And I'm sure that a lot of you in the audience feel very emotional right now, and that's what empathy is. So if you feel emotional and you have that empathy, you're headed in the right direction. Because if you can pull yourself up and listen to people's stories and kind of take that and take ownership of it and take your own accountability, then you can start to move forward and start to heal. The most important point is that we can learn from our past experiences and move forward from them. Um, just last year, this is a lot. So just last year, my 2-year marriage ended in a 3-year divorce. So you did hear those years correctly. I got 2 master's degrees. My mom and I filed for and got 501c3 status for our nonprofit called Worth It Suicide Outreach and Support. So that's the bus outside. And then also we went on to doing community events here in Eustis, Tavares, Leesburg. I'm sure I'm forgetting some places. And then also parades and different community events, all while hosting the mental health resource fair that Elaine had spoken about a minute ago, which I'll mention that also. So after all of these events are happening, or when these events are happening, I go and decide to purchase this school bus, 40-foot school bus. And my mom looked at me like it was absolutely nuts. So got it from an auction. I ended up winning. I have a really good friend that's a lieutenant at the fire company, or fire station. So I planned for him to drive the bus home, but he had a really bad night at work the night before, so he couldn't make it. So I was plan B. So we went to the auction house. I hopped in the bus, and I had to drive the bus from Zellwood, which is a Popka area, all the way through Orlando on 408, all the way to East Orlando. So that was my first time ever driving a school bus, and it was absolutely incredible. All the seats were still intact. Everything was still ready to go, bring all the kiddos to school. So I got it back, and me and my family and friends in tow started ripping out all the seats, started taking everything out of it, and we're like, we're going to make this happen. Because we needed a billboard for people to see that there is help out there. If we drive by and it says suicide outreach and support, and let them know that there are phone numbers to call, there are people to talk to, you can come inside the bus, because now it doesn't have the seats in it anymore. It's a motorhome. So you can come inside the bus, have a seat, have a drink, have some coffee. We'll sit, talk about things however long you want to stay. It's a really comfortable atmosphere for anybody to come and talk and get the resources that you need. So that's what Worth It is. So we aim to provide, we're the third-party resource that aims to provide services of any kind that you need. So if that is medical-assisted therapy, as far as psychotherapy, psychiatrist, psychology, or if it's holistic medicine, or equine therapy, canine therapy. So you name what you think you need or what would be most beneficial to you, and we'll help you with those resources. If you're not able to pay for those resources for whatever reason, if you don't have insurance or it's just out of your budget, then we're able to help you pay for those services as well. So this year, in June, I took a traveling job because I don't take a salary from the nonprofit. So I needed a way to travel on the road and then also pay my personal bills. So I took a job. It was a traveling job. So I would be in the state that I needed to be to do speaking engagements or meet with police departments, meet with fire stations, go to schools, do things like that, and then also provide for myself. So I was at this job. I had pre-approval to park on their property. They knew what the bus looked like. They knew that I ran a nonprofit. So I was parked on the property, and about 2.5 weeks into the job, a staff member complained, and they said that my bus was depressing. So I either had to cover all of the writing on the bus, which is on every single side, or I had to leave. So, I just went immediately into shock, because not only, that was the first negative reaction pretty much that I had to having the bus. So it was the first time I experienced that. And then secondly, that's completely not the reason for it. The reason for it is to be a positive influence and to help save lives. So I was just flabbergasted. Love that word. So there was nowhere else to park. I was down South Florida. There was nowhere else to go. All of the RV parks were full, and some RV parks don't allow bus conversions because everything obviously is done by yourself or, non-licensed contractors. So I searched around for a place to stay, couldn't find anywhere to stay, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going back to Eustis because I just can't, there's nowhere for me to work. So came back to Eustis, and the entire way here, I could not speak. My brain was not functioning. I was just basically just following the lines on the road. I didn't know who to call, if anyone. I didn't know what to do. It was so just out of the norm of all of the positive interaction I had leading up to that moment. And this is relative to the trauma that I experienced in my life. So I lost my father to an aneurysm, which was uh, quick, sudden. So I had no closure with that. I lost my brother to suicide, and there was no closure with that. So I've been dealing with this non-closure issue and this trauma throughout my life, and I don't really have the coping skills to deal with it. So I'm learning now. Thank goodness for my amazing therapist, Jessica Carroll, if you want to know her name. So she's helping me with all of these things. But driving back to Eustis, just hands on the wheel, following the lines, and just, all right, I know where I have to go, so I'm just going to get back and figure it out. Had no job, didn't know what to do. So basically got back here, and I was in shock for maybe 2 months. I didn't know what to do with myself. Just recently kind of, actually today lit the fire in me again. And so thank you for everyone being here today, because this amazing conference or inaugural speak out by Elaine, amazing Elaine, has brought everyone together. So even though it sounds like we have similar stories and traumatic experiences, we're trying to bring home the fact that there is a way to get help. There is a way to find something positive in you. And that was the entire reason of founding Worth It. So my brother's last post on Facebook was that he wasn't worth it. So we took that and we said, that's completely false. So we took that, turned it around, and said, you are worth it. Wellness is worth it. So we positively impact your perceptions of self-worth in order to diminish suicide. So the way that you think about yourself, the way that your brain wants to work, there's ways to cope, there's ways to change, there's ways to do all of these positive things so that you feel worth it. You feel like you have a contribution to society, and you do, because you are worth it. So anyways, after all those squirrels, I'm trying to, keep track a little bit, but I get off topic a little bit as well, so I apologize. So I do also have PTSD because I experienced these traumas, and there was no closure for those. PTSD is known as post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a condition where previous trauma comes back as flashbacks, nightmares, intense feelings of anxiety, anger, and depression. So now that we've had a little medical lesson, little knowledge nugget is what I like to call it, I can tell you that I survived all of this. I'm proud that I survived it because I can be here with you today to experience things with you. So I'm here with your story as well. I've survived 100% of my bad days. It's so hard to go through, but it's also so worth it in the end. There's so much knowledge and failure, and there's so much wisdom and pain. My hope for you today is that you have lived vicariously through a few of my experiences, and it might have changed your perception of what mental health is, and that there are ways to get help with that, made it a little bit clearer. I will also just leave you with this, that last year I took a tour in the bus through 13 states in 90 days. So basically I left Florida, zigzagged up the Mississippi, through Michigan, through the UP, down to Wisconsin, over to Minnesota, and then zigzagged back down to Florida again. And in those 90 days, I met the most amazing people that had the most amazing stories, and the connections that I made throughout the process. And little signs here and there that were given to me. I don't know how, I don't know who, I don't know where. But I ended up in on somebody's property that had just lost a friend to suicide that morning. And I showed up at 12 o'clock. So it was these little things here and there that kind of told me, like, you need to be doing this. As hard as it is, and as many people as you have to talk to, because I have PTSD and anxiety, so it makes it difficult. But I need to be doing this because people need help. So hopefully I can have some kind of influence in helping those individuals. That same location that they had just lost somebody to suicide when I showed up, I looked down on the ground and there was a little green army man. And my brother, one year for Halloween, dressed up as from Toy Story, that little green army man. So when my wheels were like, I don't really know if this is the right path for me, I don't know, if this can continue. I look down and I see this green army man, and that was it. Like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Even though I thought, like, what am I doing? I'm driving a school bus through the United States. Like, hello. So I look down and find this little green army man, and I was hungry at the time, so I went to Arby's. And when I went through the drive-through, and I'm not joking, okay, because this sounds crazy, right? So I drive through the drive-through, and there's a little green army man on the drive-through window. So I'm like, my brother is giving me all these signs to say, like, you got this, girl. It's all right, you know? So backstage, standing backstage, I'm nervous, and I have this whole thing, you know, I'm going to say these things, I'm going to stick to the words. And I look down on the floor, and there's a guitar pick. And so he played guitar. So I'm like, all right, you know, all day I've been feeling this fire in me because I've met so many incredible people today. And so the limbs of the tree just extend out. And I hope that we can all collectively make it a positive impact for our community and outside of that, because there are just so many people in need. So it's good to talk about mental health, but it's even better to do something about it, right? So let's get together, let's be a collective, and all put our resources together and say, you know what, we care about you, you are worth it, you have a purpose in this life, and so let's do it. You are worth it. Oh, sorry, reminder.
Do you want to give a plug for your...
Yep, a quick reminder. So we do have the Mental Health Resource Fair coming up October 15th. So we try to have a fun day. It's called Play for a Day, Mental Health Resource Fair. It's a fun event. There's a cupcake eating contest. There's a cornhole competition. There's live bands, food truck. Over 30 mental health resources are coming. So it's outside. It's an all-day event, pretty much 1 to 6. So we would love to have you, and we can talk about mental health in a setting where we can also still have fun. So even though I have PTSD and anxiety, I'm still going to play cornhole. Okay.
That's awesome.
Thanks, guys.